And welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. So on today's episode, we are going to go to the library to go pick up some books because we love to read here. We're also going to go and see our favorite teacher, Miss Honey, who is an icon nonetheless, of course. And we're also going to use our telekinetic powers to get revenge on our horrible principal. But regardless of all that, though, today's episode, we are going to be talking about the one and only Matilda from 1996. But I can't do this episode alone. So I decided to bring back a wonderful guest of my show who's been on all the most times of ever. But also I brought her on because this is a movie that both me and her grew up watching and are just pretty much in love with, and so I thought, why not? So with the magic of Zoom and remote recording, I bring you Miss Sarah Heidelberg. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Oh, wonderful. So we decided to do this over Zoom today because I was lazy. I didn't feel like going to your house, but it's fine. I see you enough anyway.
That's okay.
So
You'll see me tomorrow.
Exactly, I know, right? But
you saw me
anyway,
Friday.
I did see you like on Friday, recording on a Sunday, and then I'll see you tomorrow because I think we're eating crabs or something like that is what I believe it is. Love that. Anyway, we're so from Maryland, but anyway, so we decided to do Matilda because actually Sarah is pretty much my she's kind of like my strategy manager at this point, where she just asks me about like, what do you have up planned for the podcast in the next couple months, and all this, and we actually have she gave me the idea really to do this because she's like, what would you do Matilda on the podcast? And I was like, yeah, I don't see why not. Like, why not? Let's do it. And I think there is an express reason for that because, I mean, this film in and of itself has such a following to it and so many people who love it so much. And so I thought, why not cover it on here? Like, and it's also been a minute since I actually sat down and watched this movie, really. And if anything, it's just bolstered my my appreciation for this movie in general. But I'm not just talking about me, though. Sarah, what is it about Matilda? Why did you feel like you wanted to talk about this, wanted to come on and be able to talk about it? What does this movie mean to you? When did you see it? And what do you like about it?
I believe I saw it when it came out in theaters. Not, like the day it came out, but sometime it came out in 96, right?
Yes, it did.
Yes. So that would have made me like 7, I think, when it came out, something like that, which is kind of close to her age because me and her aren't that far apart in age.
That's correct.
So I think we were talking about this a couple of days ago that we saw it in the theaters. Like, it's when we remember seeing it in the theaters along with Harry Spry and
of course, yeah. Titanic.
So we are from Titanic, Spice World. I didn't see that with you, but yeah, there's a couple ones in my psyche that I remember I saw in the theaters. Yeah, definitely Titanic. That was a long one. So Matilda. So we are from Baltimore and Dundalk, nonetheless. Well, that's where we marginally grew up as we were, between the baby age and to like 10. Well, at least for me.
Pretty much,
a little bit younger. So there was a movie theater in Dundalk, and I was wondering about it. I don't even know what that was called.
I don't either. So yeah, if you're familiar with this area, so it's like right on the outskirts of Baltimore City, but it's in the county. But like technically, me and Sarah were born in Baltimore City because we were born at a Bayview Hospital, technically, which is in the city.
It was Francis Scott Key Hospital back when I was born, and maybe when you were born. Yeah,
I think so too. But now it's I think so too, but now it's known as Bayview.
It's Bayview, yes, yep.
Yes. And so we were born in Baltimore City, but we grew up in the county. So this is where, like, folks like the voice of Elmo is from Dundalk, technically, weirdly enough. The drummer from the Go-Go's is from there. I mean, weirdly enough. Yeah. And then just like John Waters is like from Towson, Catonsville, but like Baltimore County is like this kind of thing. But anyway, there's like a little flea market we would go to. If at all you were
still rocking and rolling.
It's still rocking and rolling. We would go to the flea market.
Young, and I'm 33, I'll be 34 in a few months, and it's been there longer than I've been alive. And
yep. And they would just sell so they had food there that you could buy. I think they had this is back in the 90s, but you could buy videotapes there, if I'm not mistaken. Just like clothes, obviously, it was a flea market. So shoes, all that stuff. And
DVDs,
it was right near our house too. So we would frequent it every so often, like every weekend or like every other weekend or something. We were going there quite a bit, to be honest.
We
I
went there pretty
remember.
frequently in the back in
Yeah.
the day. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a way to
So
shop.
yeah, there was the movie theater. Apparently, from what I remember, was there. It was like the flea market was on one end, and you go over. If you kind of want to think about it as a parking lot, like
Yes.
farther over to the parking lot was where the movie theater was. It is
Mhm.
now a Walmart, and it's been a
Yes, it
Walmart
is.
for I don't know how long, 20 years,
Yep.
let's say, 20 more than 20 years. But that is where we saw it, and
It's right off of
the
Eastern Avenue is what it is, because it's literally to the right of Walmart or this movie theater is where like there's parts of Eastern Avenue over there. There's Merritt Boulevard, all this kind of stuff. If you're at all interested in Baltimore County geography, this is very ravaging,
yes.
ravaging for you.
So
But yeah, it's
that
kind
is
of
where
like
we
there.
saw
Yeah.
it. It's just funny because it's one of those things where as time goes on, it's not there anymore. So it's been gone
Exactly.
for maybe longer than it was there. I don't know. I don't know when it became. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, because there's AMC, there's Regal. I wonder what Horizon. I wonder what movie theater it was because I don't remember. I just
I don't
remember that
remember
Matilda is where
either.
we saw it.
Yeah, we'd have to do our research.
I know. We didn't really do that, but that's okay. I'm just kind of curious because it's kind of funny how they just had a movie theater there. They had to have tore
Yeah,
it down to put the Walmart there, and then it's been Walmart for as long as I kind of can remember. Other than
it's
me
sure.
vaguely remembering it was a video, a movie theater. Um, so we went and saw it at that one, and it's only funny to say that because like I remember the other movie theater that's still open, the one that's on Eastern Avenue, that's
Mm-hmm.
Flagship. I remember seeing multiple movies there, and it's still there.
Yeah,
So
I
you know
remember
what it's
that too.
called. Yeah, but this one was like one of like we might have saw 1 or 2 movies there before it
Also,
got
let's
shut
be
down.
clear here as well. I don't love the AMC that I go and see every so often, but Flagship is kind of where it's at. Like we used to live in we were just getting into Maryland talk, but like we were in Harford County for the longest time, and they had a Regal up there, but
Mm-hmm.
also they had the Flagship, and bitch, Flagship was everything. Like it was a smaller theater, it wasn't as expensive, it was still pretty good. Like I saw quite
Yeah,
a few movies there, like, and I think it might still be there or it like changed over or something, but yeah, it's like
it is still physically standing, if that's what you're asking. It is, but I'm almost positive it's AMC, but it's a smaller AMC.
I think so too. I feel like I looked at that before. I was talking to
Yeah.
I think I was talking to your husband about it actually. And I was like, oh yeah, we looked this up. So anyway, enough about movie theater talk though, but
Yeah.
we
Okay, so
saw it
enough about
there.
that. So we saw it there, and it was just one of those movies that it's like a perfect child's movie to see. Like
I agree.
it's gauged to that childhood, 5 to 10, 5 to
Yeah.
11.
That audience.
It's
It's
perfect.
tailor made to that audience.
Yeah, it that's what it's meant for. So it was definitely one of those. It was cool that a movie came out that we knew or that we
Mm-hmm.
could enjoy and that we could understand.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've said some things, had some movies on the pod where we probably watched them when we shouldn't have watched them, and
Right. They were just not
but
made for us.
it's not made for us. But now watching them, but I just watched this yesterday because like it had been a minute since I watched it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's on Netflix for
Yes.
only a couple more days.
For a couple
So
more days.
I
So
swooped in and did it. So I watched it yesterday, and it's just one of those movies that like it's so easy to rewatch. Like sit down and just start it.
yeah.
I know exactly what's going to happen. I know how it starts. I know the
Mm-hmm.
beginning and middle and end. Like I know exactly how the whole movie goes. What
Yeah.
scene's coming up next? But it's a fun movie to watch.
I agree. I think this movie for me, I
And
specifically remember. Go
it
ahead.
sends a good message, sorry.
It
And
does.
as we were kind of stating earlier, I'd like to say that looking like watching it yesterday and watching it in the past, you when you watch something when you're older, like when you're an actual adult, when you're watching when
Yeah.
you're little, you're just like, oh, she's got powers, and oh, there's this
Mm-hmm.
mean lady, and then you kind of think of it as a child like mind when you're watching it at that age. When you're
Mm-hmm.
older, you can understand like kind of how you're like, wow, okay, like that's kind of it's sad how she was
I
brought up for
yeah,
sure.
totally.
But
And even to your
but it
point with
just
that,
yeah,
though, Sarah, I'm sorry sorry to butt in, but I was thinking of this today, weirdly enough, that I was like, Holy shit, they talk about suicide in this movie in 1996. They literally talk
Oh
about
yeah,
how
okay.
Magnus killed himself.
I was like,
And they
what are you
say
talking
he
about? And I'm
killed
like, oh yeah.
himself. Like, and
But
they
did
literally
he?
say that. And can you imagine, like, yeah, like, I don't know. I just think like this movie to me as a kid's movie is so mature, which is really cool, and doesn't talk down to its audience. Not saying that all kids movies do that, but it's very much like sometimes you just put fucking colorful shit and like whatever and fart noises and it's a kids movie, right? But like this movie is so mature to me where I'm just like, holy shit, like this is a great film. Like, and comparing it to something like Harriet the Spy, I think Harriet the Spy has its fun to it, I guess, but at the end of the day, it's a Nickelodeon movie. It's a little bit irreverent, you know, kind of, sort of, you know, it's kind of supposed to be like that a little bit with Nickelodeon. It's still a fun movie. It still has a fine little whatever. But I think this movie in particular has, like you said, more of a good message of like, you could choose your family. You can, you know, make your way on your own kind of a thing. And also it's good to just be a nice person, really, I guess. So, but yeah, anyway, sorry to cut you off, but
No, it's
yeah,
okay. Kind of actually what you just said kind of is what I was gonna kind of get around to is
mhm.
you know how the movie goes. It's, you may be in a family that you
Born into.
born into, but you can choose your own family.
Yeah, totally,
And
like you
essentially, you
can
know, it's
have
kind of
that.
how I think of it. You know, with how everything happened, how she really wasn't really taken care of. Yes, basically the bare minimums. They fed her, they clothed her, and stuff like that. But you know, they didn't really nurture her and all that. And for her to, you know, be what she was and be basically a genius at like 4. I mean, homegirl was walking 10 blocks to the damn library. I mean,
She was, and
that's
like actually
crazy.
doing this for herself and everything. It's so
But you
great, but
know,
yeah,
it was great to see that, you know, she made friends. You know, when she, because again, she wasn't socialized. When you think about it too, she wasn't socialized because they're
she
like,
wasn't.
"You're staying home," and they're like, "You're 4." She's like, "I'm 6," and they're like, "No, you're 4," and I'm like they don't
I
care.
wanted
Like
to
they
go to
don't.
school, but you haven't done anything. Like, what is
Right.
this?
And like when you think about it, and it's so funny when you think about it, like again, this is something I don't think I wouldn't have thought about when I was younger, but like thinking about it now, it's like kids need to be socialized by going to school or being in a play group or being in whatever, a daycare to get used to other kids. So it's like it was kind of funny how easy she made friends with people at the school when she did go, and how she ended up having a really great, not so much principal. We all know Miss Trunchbull's crazy, but how she had Miss Honey in it. They were like twin flames or whatever you want to call it. They were so similar of how they
Yeah,
grew up.
no, that they're definitely mirror
And
images of each other in a weird way, which is kind of
and
cool.
like that's really, you know, obviously I think that's why the story and the movie and everything, it's just timeless. Like
It
it's just a
is.
good sit down rewatch and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like you can't, like, you may have been born into a family, but you can always choose your family.
Hmm.
You know, if it comes to that, you know, basically she adopted her. Like that's great. Like
Yeah,
her
I like
family
it.
was like, peace out.
Yeah, exactly right.
And
That's a whole thing too. But yeah, but as we normally do on the show, we're going to go over some facts of the movie, some production history, figures of it, all that kind of stuff. So with this, Matilda was released August 2nd of 1996, which when you're hearing this, I think it'll be back on the actual day of that. So happy birthday, Matilda, you know, whatever. It was directed by Danny DeVito, who also is in the movie and he narrates it. It was written by Nicholas Kazan and Robin Swicord, obviously based off of the book Matilda from Roald Dahl, who did things like The Witches and also James the Giant Peach.
fun fact, I can say I haven't read Matilda. I'm horrible. Sorry. I've not read the book, but I'm
Did you know
pretty
that
sure
Kate
Mark.
Winslet does the audiobook?
No.
She does.
Interesting.
I wish Mara Wilson did it. I so wish of that,
I
but
know, right?
anyway.
I I never did. Don't think if I ever did read it, it was I started to read it, but I never read it when I was younger. But Mark
Mhm.
told me he read it. I'm pretty sure he said he read it when he was like younger, like he read
Love
Matilda, and
that.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Love
He's
that.
not much of a he's not much of a book person, but I thought that was funny. He's actually said he's read
Yeah.
that. So
And it was produced by Danny DeVito, Michael Schamberg, Stacey Sher, and Felicity Dahl, who I believe is either probably the daughter of him, because I don't know if Roald Dahl's wife is still alive or whatever. It's either his wife or his daughter, probably, that was producing this movie as well. It was a budget of $36 million, and with a gross US and worldwide box office of $33,459,416. So technically this was a financial flop, I guess you could say. Also, though, I'll get into it, I think this actually did well critically, funny enough. We're looking at a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes on the tomato meter from the critics, and then 73% audience score, and then a 7 out of 10 on IMDb, and a 3.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd. And then we have, do you know how many, I was on Rotten Tomatoes today, and because I kind of like pushed off this episode a little bit, but I was getting my facts today, and there was only one quote I found that was actually kind of negative, if you will, and it comes from David N. Butterworth of rec.arts.movies.reviews, who states that the adult performers fare considerably better than the young lead in this faithful adaptation of the Roald Dahl classic. But it was literally like that and like somebody else's like star review, and that was it. Everybody else had something positive to say, which is really nice. Like Roger Ebert said nice things about this movie. Like it seems to have done well in the eyes of critics and stuff like that.
Yeah. I know you always look for a negative review
because they're so fun. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And then our cast,
like when you think about it, like what is there really negative to say about this movie?
Not much. I mean, really, and I don't think so. Like, even like Mara Wilson, like she wasn't much of an actress anyway. You know, she was kind of put into it by her mother, to be honest. Go listen to Mara Wilson on really anything she's done. But this is gonna be Mara Wilson Stan hour because I love her a lot. But she actually was just on Vulnerable with Christy Carlson Romano. She's been on there twice, actually. She was on there once like a year or so ago, and then there was another time she was just on it because she has a book or something that she's releasing, and she talked about like her mom and like how her mom's like mom was really vain and like all this kind of stuff. So like kind of pushed her into this a little bit, if you will, but like so yeah, I don't think Mara Wilson was like a fantastic child actor or anything. She was fine, she worked, but like, you know, for somebody to say that like the adults fare better than this person, I'm like, yeah, you have Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, duh. Like, also, Mara Wilson's not like a prodigy with an actor, but she's a perfectly serviceable actress.
Right. Like,
she was also like 8 or 10 or whatever. Right. So she had
only been in Miss Doubtfire, which was like 93
and Miracle on 34th Street, really.
Miracle on 34th Street. I believe there could be another movie that I'm missing, but those are the two that you know.
Yeah, those are the big ones, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously we've all seen Miss Doubtfire. It's like a classic. I've never seen Miracle on 34. Well, I know Miracle on 34th Street's a remake.
Yeah.
At the same, you know, she did these probably 3 or 4 years of each other.
Quick succession, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Realistically, this is probably the last movie she did where she was a kid, right?
She was, and then she did Thomas the Tank Engine and the Magical Railroad or whatever, which also has the little brother from Bring It On in it as well. That guy. And also there was somebody else in it or whatever. Anyway, she was in that, but she was like 12. So she was like kind of a preteen, and then that was like her last role that she had on camera until she came back on like on the Nostalgia Critic, and then also she's done voiceover as well, and all that kind of stuff. That's why I wish she would do an audiobook of Matilda. It would be so lit. But anyway, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, we have Mara Wilson, as we stated, as Matilda Wormwood, and then she was played by actually really different twins as a baby. She was actually played by both female and male people. So when she's a newborn, I think partly it's like a twin girls, and then I think when she's in the car in the back, I believe that's probably twin boys, honestly, or something like that. And then 9-month-old is played by these two twins, and then there's a 2-year-old. She's played by these two twin girls, and then she's played by a 4-year-old who's like younger, and then she turns into Mara Wilson. Embeth Davidtz as Jennifer Honey, who is the teacher at I think it's a Cruncham Hall, I believe. Embeth Davidtz, love her. She's from 13 Ghosts. She's in Army of Darkness, which was her film debut, funny enough, in an Evil Dead movie. And she was also in Schindler's List as well. Amazing, wonderful, lovely South African American person, like, cool. Pam Ferris, who is Agatha Trunchbull. Do you know who she is? Do you know what she's from? This movie, but also
Call the Midwife.
She is on Call the Midwife, and she was also the aunt who blows away in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Duh.
Mm-hmm. Well, our mom loves like British shows, and she watches Call the Midwife, and so I was so like, "Oh, you know that she's in that, right?"
Yeah, no, it was so funny because she was watching that a while back, and I was sitting there, I had to have still been living at home a couple years back, and she had it on, and I was like, just kind of just looking at the TV, and I look and I'm like, that looks like Miss Trunchbull, because she will always and forever be Miss Trunchbull.
Oh,
she won't be Harry Potter's aunt.
Yeah, she won't be that.
She will always be the Trunchbull. Okay, like that's what she is. That's who she is.
I think it's technically she's the sister of the aunt or whatever. Right? Okay,
whatever.
That's true.
Yeah, whatever. She's in Harry Potter. We'll just give it that.
She's in the Harry Potter world. Right. She will be Trunchbull, absolutely.
So when I was looking at that, I was like, God, she looks like her. I was like, has to be. And then, of course, I did my. I'm like, yeah. And then I was like, Mom, I was like, did you know that that's Miss Trunchbull from Matilda? Uh-huh. And I don't know if she said yesterday. I can't remember if she knew or not. But I was like, I feel like the last thing I saw her in was Matilda, and then to see her in this, obviously, Call the Midwife is all nuns, so she obviously played a nun, and so it was interesting. She didn't play as cruel of a character as Miss Trunchbull, but she still kind of had that same sternness. If that makes sense.
Totally.
Like,
yeah, sure.
Kind of played similar, but she wasn't as mean as she was in Matilda.
Yeah.
But it's like,
and then we have Danny.
Does she get typecast? She kind of gets typecast.
Probably does, yeah. Yeah, because even when she's Aunt Marge, like, she's a bitch. So, like, yeah. Then you have Danny DeVito, who is the producer and director of this movie, also playing Harry Wormwood, who's Matilda's dad. And Rhea Perlman is his mom, his real life wife. Well, they're actually separated. They're still married, but they're separated, so they haven't divorced yet. I don't think they will, but whatever. Anyway, so she plays Zinnia Wormwood, who is honestly just tackiness goals, obviously. Zinnia Wormwood.
What a name.
Zinnia Wormwood. Zinnia. What the fuck does... I mean, I love you, Zinnias, but, like, I'm just saying, like, if there's anybody named Zinnia listening, but, I mean... Come on now. And then also Paul Rubens and Tracy Walter are Bob and Bill, who are two boat salesmen who are really FBI agents who are staking out the Wormwood residence. And then you have like Brian Levinson, who plays Michael Wormwood, who's her brother. Kiami Devale as Lavender, who I love. She's one of Matilda's friends. Jacqueline Steiger, who plays Amanda Thripp. Jimmy Cars as Bruce Bogtrotter. Some of these names, my God. Kira Spencer Hesser as Hortensia, which I love that name for some reason. And then Jean Spiegel Howard as Mrs. Phelps, who's she is the librarian in the beginning. But do you know who that is, Sarah? Do you know who her children are?
The old lady at the library?
Yes.
You're asking me if I know who her children are?
Yes, because they're famous.
What's the last name?
Jean Spiegel Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard?
That is her granddaughter, because that's Ron Howard's mom and Clint Howard's mom. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Clint Howard, who is the ice cream man, and like he's Republican and kind of weird, but like him
he
and
plays
also
a lot of like
he's like a weirdo, like he plays a weirdo, but then also Ron Howard, who's literally Opie from Andy Griffith's show and like being fucking
Richie
Ron
from
Howard.
Happy Days. Yeah.
Right. That's literally his mom in the beginning. So yeah. Fun times. So,
I didn't know that.
Yes, that is. And she had her own career too. Like she did other stuff, but in her later age, like the movie who actually Bryce Dallas Howard's in it, The Grinch That Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey, that's dedicated to her honor because she was dead by the time it came out. Right. But like Bryce Dallas Howard's in that, Clint Howard's in it, because Ron Howard I think made that. Yeah, he directed it, so it makes enough sense. But yeah, no, she was in that, and she's been in other movies too, and yeah, that's like so funny. I was just like, that's so cool. I
literally did not know that. Like that is you telling me that I never knew that.
Yeah,
I'm always looking at my trivia. But
she's so like literally a famous mother of like literally a famous ass director and actor.
So it's like kind of like Nepo Baby and then Nepo Baby.
I kind of I don't know if she was like super famous necessarily, but like her children probably became more famous than she was, specifically Ron Howard. But like, because even Clint Howard, I mean, he's known, but like he's very much a genre actor. He's very much known in like the horror sphere because he plays like horror characters and shit like that. But yeah, I love that for her. And then Bryce
definitely
Dallas,
more famous.
Definitely more famous, but like, and then Bryce Dallas Howard's just as famous as her dad, really. So it's like, it's crazy how that kind of works and all that. It's so crazy. Anyway, and then John Lovitz is in here too. He is the host of $1 Million Sticky, which this whole movie is just like ridiculous and I love it. It's so great. But anyway, so here's the thing. So writing the novel. So we'll talk as I normally have, and some of my most recent episodes I've been doing like adaptations of books in a way. So I talk about them a little bit. So like writing the novel, for example. So Roald Dahl, he has been seen as a problematic figure in some stuff. I don't know why all that. I didn't do all that research, but whatever. He made some iconic stuff. I mean, The Witches, this, James and the Giant Peach. Did you ever watch Coraline? I know you probably did because of the kids.
I watched it before them.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's true. Because that's one of our shout out Barbie. That's one of her daughters. One of the favorite movies she had when she was young, and I don't think Barbie was into that. No. Sorry, yeah, no, it is a good little movie though. But Roald Dahl, he initially drafted this novel. He portrayed Matilda as a wicked, irrational girl. Her name being drawn from Hilary Belloc's poem "Matilda, who told such dreadful lies, who tortured her innocent parents and used her psychokinetic powers to help an unethical teacher win money at horse racing." So that was the initial draft that he had. And then a biographer by the name of Jeremy Treglone went through the author's documents, including the drafts for the novel, and noted that the American editor by the name of a guy by the name of Stephen Roxburgh had been instrumental in just reshaping the story. So it was the editor's idea to make her innocent, she's an innocent child who likes books, and with her powers manifesting as a result of the abuse that she's endured. And so Roxburgh also suggested various changes to the main character that was incorporated into the finished novel. And as Dahl decided to take the manuscript to a different publisher, the two had a falling out. And so the edited version of the manuscript was produced by Puffin Books. And then Roald Dahl, he explained in an interview that he got it wrong at first, and that the book took over a year to rewrite, even though he failed to mention Roxburgh's input. Sarah's also showing me the dog right now, our cute little dog that I've had before and that she has at her house. And then some inspirations for this particular novel was that the mean and loathsome Mrs. Pratchett, owner of the sweet shop Dahl frequented as a boy in Cardiff, England, was the inspiration for Miss Trunchbull. And then Mr. Wormwood was based on a real life character from Dahl's home village in Buckinghamshire. The library in Great Miss Enden, which is where he lived, was the inspiration for the library in the beginning. And then Lucy Dahl, who's his daughter. So maybe Felicity Dahl was his wife or whatever. But she stated that her father's novel was in part about his love for books. And she's quoted as saying, "I think there was a deep, genuine fear within his heart that books were going to be going away, and he wanted to write about it." So a little bit of a plot summary. There's a big old plot summary of this fucking book, but let me go through it real quick. So in a small Buckinghamshire village, 40 minutes by bus away from Reading and 8 miles from Aylesbury, Matilda Wormwood is born to Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood. She immediately shows amazing precocity, learning to speak at age 1 and to read by age 3.5, perusing all the children's books in the library by the age of 4 and 3 months, and moving on to longer classics such as Great Expectations and Jane Eyre. However, her parents emotionally abuse her and completely refuse to acknowledge her abilities. To keep her from being frustrated, Matilda finds herself forced to pull pranks on them, like gluing her father's hat to his head, sticking a parrot in the chimney to simulate like a burglar or ghost, and then also bleaching her father's hair with peroxide. At the age of 5.5, Matilda enters school and befriends her teacher, Miss Jennifer Honey, who is astonished by her intellectual abilities. And Miss Honey tries to move Matilda into a higher class, but the tyrannical headmistress, Miss Agatha Trunchbull, refuses. Miss Honey also tries to talk to Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood about her daughter's intelligence, but they ignore her, with the mother contending braininess is an undesirable trait in a little girl. Miss Trunchbull later confronts a girl named Amanda Thripp for wearing pigtails and does a hammer throw with the girl on the playground fence. And a boy named Bruce Broadtrotter is later caught by the cook stealing a piece of cake from Miss Trunchbull. And the headmistress attempts to have him eat an 18-inch wide cake in front of the assembly and then smashes the platter over his head after he unexpectedly succeeds in eating the whole cake. Matilda quickly develops a particularly strong bond with Miss Honey and watches as Trunchbull terrorizes her students with deliberately creative, over-the-top punishments to prevent parents from believing them, such as throwing them in a dark closet called the Chokey, which is lined with nails and broken glass. And when Matilda's friend Lavender plays a practical joke on Trunchbull by placing a newt in her jug of water, Matilda is blamed, and in anger, she uses an unexpected power of telekinesis to tip the glass over, containing the newt onto Trunchbull. Matilda reveals her new powers to Miss Honey, who confides that after her wealthy father, Dr. Magnus Honey, suspiciously died, she was raised by an abusive aunt, revealed to be Miss Trunchbull. Trunchbull appears, among other misdeeds, to be withholding her niece's inheritance. And so she lives in poverty, Miss Honey, in a derelict farm cottage, and her salary is being paid into Miss Trunchbull's bank account for the first 10 years of her teaching career, while she is restricted to £1 per week in pocket money. And preparing to avenge Miss Honey, Matilda, she practices her telekinesis, and later during a sadistic lesson that Trunchbull is teaching, she telekinetically raises a piece of chalk to the board and begins to use it to write, posing as the spirit of Magnus. Addressing Miss Trunchbull using her first name, Magnus demands that Miss Trunchbull hand over Miss Honey's house and wages and leaves the school, causing her to faint. The next day, the school's deputy headmaster, Mr. Tribley, visits Trunchbull's house and finds it empty, except for signs of Trunchbull's hasty exit. She's never seen from again, and the next day, Miss Honey receives a letter from a local solicitor's office telling her that her father's lifetime savings were safe in the bank and the property she lived in as a kid was left to her. So the guy becomes the new headmaster, proving himself to be capable and good-natured, overwhelmingly improving the school's atmosphere and curriculum, and quickly moving Matilda into the top form class with the 11-year-olds. And then rather to Matilda's relief, she soon is no longer capable of telekinesis. Miss Honey theorizes that this is because Matilda is using her brain power on a more challenging curriculum, leaving less of her brain's enormous energy free. And then Matilda continues to visit Miss Honey at her house regularly, returning home one day to find her parents and her older brother Michael hastily packing to leave for Spain. Miss Honey explains that this is because the police found out that Mr. Wormwood has been selling stolen cars. And then Matilda asks permission to live with Miss Honey, to which her parents rather distractingly agree to. And then Matilda and Miss Honey find their happy ending as the Wormwoods drive away, never to be seen from again. And so that is the plot summary of Matilda, and pretty much the fucking movie plot summary too. Just really funny to me. But yeah, so okay, so why did they turn this into a movie then, right? Do you have anything to add about that before we move on to anything?
It is raining.
Girl, I can't hear it, but it's fine.
Not so much to say about the book, but yeah, it definitely sounds very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of beat per beat of how the movie goes.
Pretty much.
But I will say, because you not so much, me, yes, I love Harry Styles, and he has a song called Matilda. Yeah. And basically, in a sense, I don't want to say it's about this movie, but like it is. Like, if that makes sense. That's why he named it Matilda, because of how she's treated and like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally. I mean,
it's not like a base per base, like the song is all about the movie. It's not like that. It's just like,
is it kind of like that one guy? Is it kind of like that one guy? I haven't even listened to the song. Do you know who Lil Dicky is? Do you happen to know who that is?
I think I've heard about him. Yeah.
He has a song called Freaky Friday, and I think the literal also Freaky Friday, fucking great movie. I just watched it not too long ago, and it's so good.
Yeah.
But anyway. if he has a song called Freaky Friday, and literally the music video like is kind of parodying the movie a little bit, and it's like two girls in bed with him. I don't know who fucking knows, but anyway, so but yeah. Mm-hmm.
With Matilda, it says the ballad, because it's a song. It's a sad song. This ballad finds Harry Styles addressing a girl who's been ill-treated by her family.
Oh, okay.
The singer encourages Matilda to stop associating with these people and move on from the toxic environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says that he wrote this for a friend or somebody he knows, but obviously used a different name. So he goes, Matilda isn't the real name of Styles' mistreated acquaintance. The pop superstar took it from the title character of British writer Roald Dahl's 1988 children's novel Matilda, a young girl with genius, and we all know what it's about. So basically, he's writing it because of someone he knows and what they went through, and named it Matilda because of the book and the movie, essentially. So it's kind of a cool little. I'm trying to insert Harry into everything, but he literally has a song, and that's what it's called.
That's fine. It makes sense to the movie, if anything, and plus also he's not that much older than us either. So like he probably definitely, as a Brit, saw this movie, probably read the book, things like that. So
that's cool.
But anyway, in November of 1993, it was announced that Universal Pictures had won a screen adaptation of Matilda by Roald Dahl, written by Nicholas Kazan and Robin Swicord. Following a heated bidding war between Universal and Columbia Pictures, and following disagreements between Danny DeVito and Bregman Bear Productions over budgetary concerns, Universal put Matilda into turnaround, which is just like a development hell, pretty much, with Columbia TriStar Pictures picking up the project. So that's how that worked. Do you know who Miriam Margolyes is? Do you happen to know who that is? Have you ever seen the Harry Potter movie, the second one?
Yes, it's been a long time though.
Do you remember Professor Sprout? Who she's like that's Marianne Margolyes, pretty much. She's like a very she's a British comedian. She's like a lesbian in real life, and she's just like really blue and kind of like foul, but like in a funny way, kind of. It was confirmed that she auditioned for the role of Agatha Trunchbull during a filmed interview with Joe Brand for the UK TV special, which they did, Revolting Rulebook, which apparently was hosted by Richard E. Grant, and it was done on September 22nd, a couple days after your birthday, 2007. This documentary that they had commemorated the 90th birthday of Dahl, and also celebrated his impact as a children's author in popular culture. And funny enough, Miriam Margolyes, she went on to be Aunt Sponge, and also the glowworm in James and the Giant Peach, which was also released in 1996. Because again, that's another one of his books. He was having a good year in 1996, I guess. And then let's see. Pam Ferris, she incurred several injuries on this production. So where she's whacked with like the chalkboard rubber things, it required her to keep her eyes closed. And she pretty much just had like chalk dust get into her eyes, and she had to get her eyes washed out. And then the scene where Trunchbull twirls Amanda Thripp by her pigtails required a harness to support the little girl, the wires of which were threaded through the pigtails and then looped around her fingertips to give her a grip. And as she swung her around, the centrifugal force grew too great, and it tore the top part of Ferris's finger, which means she had to get 6 or 7 stitches in her finger when she was doing that scene. But apparently the little girl, Jacqueline Steiger, she just thought it was kind of fun. Apparently, if you own the Blu-ray of this or anything like that, I think recently, if you have it, and you can find it on YouTube, actually, there is this nice little reunion that they have, where it has a bunch of the people from the movie. So it has like literally like Rhea Perlman and Danny DeVito are there. Pam Ferris is there. The guy who plays Bruce, who turned out to be a very handsome young man, he's there. Amanda Thripp is there. The girl who plays Lavender is there. And if anything, I feel like it seems like this set was so friendly and open and lovely, really, which is crazy because Danny DeVito is definitely somebody who like can play these like villains. He's the fucking Penguin, he can play these like kind of smarmy people, right? But at his core, I think he seems to have a really good heart. And Mara Wilson even said, like, you know, like, I think people kind of conflated a little bit of like they somehow like took her in after her mom passed away, which we'll get to. But like, you know, I think it was more so just like during a time like that, they really did open themselves to be like a safe space for her to go to. And that's like so super cool. I think that's so wonderful. But yeah. Did you have anything else to add about anything like that? No, yeah. I mean, like, that's just what it seems like. It doesn't seem like there was much of like, you know, drama on set or anything like that. This is mostly a kid movie. So like, you want to make sure the kids are working in conditions that, you know, are not exploitative, obviously, but also it's like these things of it just seems like they had a really good time. So I'm very happy for that. The Crank House, that's a real place, okay? And Sarah is going to Los Angeles in a couple of months for her honeymoon. She will be stopping off at LA at one point. That in San Diego, I think. But anyway, so the Crank House, which is in Altadena, which is in Los Angeles, it stood in for Miss Trunchbull's house. The exterior of Matilda's house is in Whittier on Youngwood Drive. And then the Pasadena Public Library is literally the library from the beginning. But Sarah, do you know what other movies the Crank House has been used for?
No.
All right. So if you look...
Wait a minute.
You think you might know one?
No. Well, yes. Only because I think I read something yesterday. Scream.
Mm-hmm. Scream 2. It's the Omega Beta Zeta house where Cece Cooper dies, unfortunately. But
I read that and I was like, oh, Jesse me liking this information.
Well, yes. And also, if you listen, well, you didn't listen to it, I don't think, but in my Hocus Pocus episode, it is also Vanessa's house. It is Allison's house, like literally, when you think of it.
I did listen to Hocus Pocus.
No, but I'm just saying, like, but I think I mentioned it there too, because I also said it's a Scream 2 house. So it is, but yeah, it's also, so that place is literally also Allison's house from Hocus Pocus, because the interior of that house, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they use that as interior of her house. I think it's the exterior of it, because the Hocus Pocus house and the Scream 2 house on the inside look the same. When you look at Allison's house in Hocus Pocus and you look at the Omega Beta Zeta house in Scream 2, they are the same house, which is crazy to me. I'm just like, what the fuck? But yeah, I think they use the outside of this house for this, because when I looked at this yesterday, when you think about it, it doesn't look the same because it's very distinctive to me, at least.
You're saying the inside of the house is the same, not the outside?
I think the outside is what it is. I don't think the inside's the same.
But I don't think that's right, because when the Hocus Pocus, when they are trick or treating,
yeah,
Danny and Max are trick or treating, and they get to it, they're like, "Whoa, who lives here?"
I think,
house.
Yeah, but so I think it's the inside of her house.
It's not the same house as Trunchbull. Oh,
I don't think it is. I think it's, like I said, I think it's the outside of it is what it is. I think the inside of the Crank House, I know people are probably like, what the hell are you guys talking about? But like, I think the inside of the Crank House,
they're like, who cares?
Is like yeah, exactly. But like, you know, but I think the inside of the Crank House, I believe, like literally Vanessa Shaw's house in Hocus Pocus, and then Omega Beta Zeta house. But then I guess the outside of it or something like that. Yeah, I don't think the exterior of Allison's house is that same house. I think it's a different house apparently, but the inside is the Crank House, like, because it does look like the Scream 2 house, like very much so. I guess they just used it for the exteriors, I guess, or something, because it really does not look like the same house though. I'm just like, that is not the Omega Beta Zeta house. I should know. I love Scream 2. Ugh. Obviously. But anyway, that's enough about that though. But just know that this is all shot in Los Angeles pretty much, as a bunch of movies are. So, you know, that's kind of what that is. But and then also in March 10th of 1995, Mara Wilson's mother, Susie Wilson, was diagnosed with breast cancer during filming, and then later died April 26th of 1986, which was 4 months before the release of this film. So it was dedicated in her memory. And then Danny DeVito did reveal that he did get to show the final edit to Susie Wilson before she passed away. so that she could see her daughter perform and be Matilda. That's very nice and lovely. But yeah.
I didn't know for a long time that her mom, like, I didn't know, like, obviously when I was younger, I didn't know that her mom was sick and that she died. So only in recent years have I known that her mom was sick with cancer and ended up passing. And basically, like, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman took her in the sense of, like, when they were shooting stuff, like, they took her in and cared for her, you know.
They did, yeah. I think it was also because the father.
So it was very different from how they were in what characters they played.
I think her father was just probably overwhelmed by the fact that his wife died, and I think just needed to get his bearings together, you know, kind of get himself situated. So yeah, I definitely think that those two really did kind of help to provide a safe space for Matilda, for Mara Wilson, you know, which is just really nice. Again, she talks about it in her she has talked about this before too, because I think some people conflate this idea that like they somehow like, you know, but they did like let her stay with them, or like they let her stay with them and all that kind of stuff. It's, you know, because of course, like, you just worked on this like movie that I think for all intents and purposes, it was popular with the children. If anything, I do think that even though this movie cost a buttload to make, it cost like $36 million and it only made 33 billion, but this is still a movie that is lauded by people who saw it when they were kids and really look at it as something to be revered and to pass on to other people. You know what I mean? So I think that's like super cool, and I love that. I will also say too, so there's this movie, there's the book, obviously, and there is the movie musical that's on Netflix. Did you watch that at all, or no?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Yeah, I didn't either. I have seen the show on Broadway with my friend. We went, and the music is so good. It's so lovely and wonderful. So please go get the Matilda soundtrack. Go download it right now. It's really good. Yeah, but like, I like the musical enough. I have not seen the movie musical, so I don't really know. I can't really say anything about it, but it's always going to be this for me. Do you know what I mean? Although, funny enough, Sarah has not seen, but Barbie has seen Hereditary. You have not seen Hereditary yet. One of the main girl in that, Charlie, here's her name. She's played by Millie Shapiro, and Millie Shapiro is one of the girls who was one of 4 girls who played Matilda on its original Broadway run. So she would like kind of rotate and all that, because they would rotate different girls playing Matilda. And all that, but that musical is really fucking good. So please go listen to its soundtrack. I don't know what the movie musical is like, so I don't want to really comment on it, but it's a little bit more to the book. Like it's set in the UK, from what I remember. This is very Americanized, if you will. It's kind of anywhere here in the USA. But yeah, there's that. But yeah, I mean, and I just don't. The thing is that like this movie, I also don't think. I have thought this a couple of different times with different movies. Even though they've wanted to say like, you know, maybe we could do a sequel or whatever. I don't really know what fucking kind of sequel they could do. You know what I mean? And I also never want them to remake this. I mean, I know things get remade a bunch of times. I think this movie lives in a perfectly good, nice little space of like, it doesn't need to get remade. I don't count the musical movie as a remake because it's just adapting the musical pretty much. So, you know, but like, yeah, I don't see the need for it. I also don't think that like, I don't know, like maybe it's because our society is very sensitive to stuff like that, which is fine. But I feel like this particular adaptation, you know, that is of this movie, again, I think it's as mature as it needs to be. And I appreciate that for what it is. I would still want to show a kid this. It's so it's such a good movie to show kids, I think, too. And all of that. I also kind of want to delve a little into just this idea of like how I feel like also with queer folks, especially seeing this movie and connecting with it because fun little fact that Mara Wilson herself is a queer woman. She's a bisexual person, which is lovely. But after watching this earlier today, I really do see that, like, I can understand why somebody would really look at this as a like little girl, maybe, or even just like a person who has kind of been made to feel othered by people, whether it be for being queer or being like whatever the hell, right? So it doesn't shock me that like people in the queer community could really go to this movie to be like, wow, like, yeah, that feels really like it feels close to my heart, if anything, because, you know, I mean, Matilda's obviously a child, so doesn't exactly have the best understanding of sexuality as itself. But like, you know, I just feel like this is a story about abuse, really, but this kind of emotional abuse, and her being able to go through that trauma and come out on the other end of it, if anything. And yeah, I just think that's like really nice. And it wasn't until I watched it now I really see that, and I'm just like, wow, good on you, Danny DeVito, for like capturing that and being like really good about it. Like, you know, because there is a bit of a deeper thing to this movie than a normal children's movie. I feel like that's my personal thought. Do you have any thoughts to share with that either at all, especially looking at it with adult eyes now? I know you kind of mentioned it a little earlier, but like, was there anything that kind of stood out to you that you could like think of?
Not really.
No, it's kind of just the same
No.
thing. Like you don't realize until like you're older where you're like, wow, they really this is actually a good little message, and this is just like a bit of a different kid movie than what you're used to with these other of its other ilk that is there, you know what I mean, within the genre, if you will. I think we will go through like a bit of we already kind of went through the book plot summary, and I don't think we need to go through a beat by beat, like literal plot summary of the movie, but I think we can at least talk about just some of these like characters and also some just like very, very notable scenes, if anything. I'm trying to like I'm trying to change up my formatting here so it's not too boring or anything like that. But no, I think if anything, I don't just want to talk about like, here's what happens in this movie, da da da. You already heard about it, but I kind of want to know, like, you know, what do we think about this person, or what do we think about these scenes or whatever, or what kind of stood out to us. Yeah, so I don't know. I think if anything, so like we can go through some of these like main characters, I feel like, too. So what do you feel about like Matilda as a character? Like, what is it about her? Do you connect with her in any way, or what do you think of her, I guess?
She's very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a mind of her own, obviously. Like, when they're like, hey, you know, like later on in the movie, when they're like, hey, like, you know, like when she's cut from a different cloth of her family. She is her own person. She doesn't just go with the crowd of they're doing wrong things, I'm part of this family, I'm going to do wrong things. Whereas her brother is like basically just like scum as well. And she's, you know, she's a good egg. Like, like I said earlier, she was born into a family that didn't care about her, and they definitely say that in the movie. And I don't know, she's a good character. She's a good character, and they definitely got a good actress to you know, fill that role out for her.
Believable, if anything. Yeah, I agree. I can definitely see like someone like Matilda, and again, it's I can understand why she's our main character, and it's crazy to me that like so many people have been affected by this film. Everybody from, like I said, queer folks who look at this and they're like, wow, Matilda, like, I fucking get it. Like, my family also didn't really care that much about me, and when they found out I was this, like, oh god. But also like young girls who were like, wow, I get to see a girl on screen who I actually feel like I could be. Like, that's cool. Like, she's not like
I can't relate to her in the sense that, like, I feel like we can't like relate in that sense. Like, but unfortunately, there is people out there that can relate very much to her. That they were just a mistake, or they, you know,
or they're a victim of this kind of abuse, you know, And it's like being able to see that and see something like that is handled in, I think, a tactful manner.
So people are like,
yeah.
that was my life. Like they can, and so for
Yeah.
them to have a movie that they can reflect on
Mhm.
and to be like, okay, well these type of things can happen. Things can be tough, but
Yeah.
of course it's a what PG or G
It's
movie.
PG.
It's PG, so it's not going to have a lot of craziness in it because unfortunately, people that are in these type of situations or children that are in these type of
Yeah.
situations probably have worse things happen. But it's
True.
nice that there's a movie out there that can show the light and show
Yeah.
that things can change and
Yeah.
all that. So, like I
Agreed.
said, I can't personally,
Right.
but there is people I know that I'm sure there's tons of people, boys and
Yeah.
girls, that can relate to her, and
Yeah.
but whether you can relate to her or not, it's still a good movie to watch. It still brings across a good message. It's a
Yeah.
fun movie to watch with its
Yeah.
different little quirks about it and stuff.
I also think it's funny that like it's that, and then also people, and we'll get to Miss Honey in a minute, but like also people who are educators or librarians who also like this character because Matilda herself is like a student that you could kind of want, somebody who loves learning and education, but also who loves books. And I think that's kind of like not the same as like Parker Posey and Party Girl, who like it was a party girl and she becomes a librarian, but like more so like this chick, and even Mara Wilson has said like, she feels like Matilda as an adult would be like a children's librarian or something. Like that checks out. Like, so I think there's also people like that who, again, they're like, oh my God, I wanted to be a librarian because I saw Matilda, or I wanted to be a teacher because I saw Matilda. And I saw this person who loved learning and loved education.
And even to go more into it, honestly,
do it, girl. That's what we do here.
Librarian, teacher, but when you actually kind of go into the more, what I was saying is you could go deeper into it. Yes, being a teacher, obviously, or being a librarian, but if you kind of want to get down just a little bit deeper, social worker, or
you know what? I didn't even think about that, Sarah, but that actually works very well.
Like, I only say that deeper because unfortunately, I think that is a very type of gut wrenching job. It can be.
Yeah.
Stressful. I would like to say helpful, but sometimes when you hear stuff, but because of if you want to take away the sunshine and rainbows of the movie, which there's not much of it. I mean, it does have a happy ending, which is great. If you kind of peel that away, that could really inspire people to be like, wow, like
wow, this girl is like, wow, this girl is like not in the best of situations and she probably needs to get out of it. That's interesting that you make that parallel because I could see it. That makes total sense because again,
I would not have thought about this back in the day, but
sure. But this is you as an adult thinking like, wow, I could understand why somebody would watch this. They'd want to be a teacher. They'd want to be a librarian. They'd want to do this. But I can understand like somebody who's like, oh, like, maybe if I want to help children or help families in a way, again, social work is a whole crazy mess of a job, I'm sure. But like at the end of the day, it's trying to help people out and trying to help people survive life. But it's like, that's kind of interesting. I never even heard of that, but I'll take it. Shit, why not? Because again, there is something to this where it's like this movie is, yes, a children's movie, but this is about a girl who is experiencing like neglect from her family in terms of love, nurturing, any of that. Like, again, I don't know. It's just like, they don't care that much about her. You know what I mean? They do the bare minimum, like you said, but like, they don't give a shit that much about her. And it's like that, Harry Wormwood's all about kind of punishment and all that shit, whatever. But like, it's not a great environment, I guess. So that is very interesting. We can also move on to our next character of like what we think. What do you think about Miss Honey as a character? Because I love this character a lot.
I've always liked Miss Honey as a character, and there's just really not much more to say about her other than she definitely needed in this story as a protagonist and a good character because there's not many of them. When you kind of think of Trunchbull, the parents, the brother, all that stuff, you don't really see the goodness in the movie, and you see
Mhm.
people like Miss Honey and Lavender and her friends
Yeah, yeah,
and things like that, and so yeah, I mean, she's just there's just she's just good. When you
yeah,
think of a sweet, caring person, you wish that there was more Miss Honeys in the world. There, fortunately,
yeah,
there's not, but I'm sure people can say that they've had a Miss Honey or
yeah.
know a Miss Honey or had a Miss Honey or
Hmm.
they want to maybe strive and be a Miss Honey.
Yeah,
And that's amazing. Like that's awesome that,
yeah,
she could portray a character, an actor that's believable
yeah.
and what she came through too, and which, it's kind of funny when you're watching the show or when you're watching the movie and you're
Hmm.
like, okay, and then you realize like who Trunchbull is to her
Yeah.
and that what she
What
had to
her
endure when
story
she was
is.
a child and like kind of how similar she was to Matilda. Like
Yeah,
they grew up the same way almost. Well,
yeah.
similar but not the same, obviously. And how she was taken care of, she was taken
Hmm.
care of by like a relative, where Matilda's was her parents. But yeah, I mean, Miss Honey is just sweet. I mean,
Hmm.
there's her name. I mean, they picked
Right, right.
he used the right,
On the nose.
yeah, on the nose. You couldn't have did like Miss Butter or something like that, or
Right, no, it
like
wouldn't have worked.
or Miss something like that. Like Honey
Right.
works, and it's all that. But yeah, I mean, I've always just liked the dynamic
Yeah,
and seeing Miss Honey and Matilda together. That was always a part of the movie I liked to have when they had their scenes together. I don't like so much when she has her scenes with her parents because it's kind of hard to watch that. Even
I
though
know.
when you're younger, you don't think about it. You're like, oh, it sucks. But you kind of look at it older. That really seeing it through adult eyes. You're like, that's just she just kind of is a loner. She just like,
Yeah,
yeah, feed me, dress me, and she's like, but other than that, they don't do anything. Like
yeah.
she was very self help that
Sufficient.
sufficient to herself, and she did her own thing and all that. But yeah, I always like the dynamic in the scenes. When they had
Yeah,
their walk and they went into the Trunchbull's house and all that stuff. So
yeah. I
um,
agree.
I've always liked their duo together, and
Hmm.
yeah, Miss Honey's just. And again, as far as the actress that portrays her, I only know that she was in a few things,
Hmm.
and and I don't know if she plays a lot of those. Actually, I don't think she actually does play a lot of those characters, but
In
I just don't know
13
if I
Ghosts,
just yeah,
she's a two-faced.
yeah. I was about to say, I was like, I'm pretty sure she was in 13 Ghosts and she was not very
She's a
nice.
villain in that movie. She's a
Yeah,
villain in that movie.
and then she was in Schindler's List too. I remember that.
I think she was
Well,
the wife of like one of the Nazi guys or something.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty
So I don't
sure.
know if she played a bad character in that, or I mean, there's really not a
She's
whole bunch of good
yeah.
characters, and
I do think that I haven't seen Army of Darkness, but I believe that she is literally like the co-lead with Bruce Campbell in that movie.
oh,
And so
okay.
I believe
I just
she
know her
is like a
from
good
13 Ghosts. I
person.
mean, yeah, I know her from 13 Ghosts, obviously Matilda, and vaguely from Schindler's List. Because honestly,
Yeah,
don't want to dive too much into that movie, but we watched it in school because
we
that's
did
what you
too.
do, and it's
Oh, it's
literally just
sad.
one. Yeah, oh yeah, and it's one of those movies that you see it one time and you don't need to see it again. Like you
Yeah,
don't need to go down that path again
it's
because
long as shit. First
it's
off, it's
long
oh my god.
it's long and well, I mean, not even say that. I mean, yes, it's a long movie. So long movies are
Yeah,
kind of like you gotta prepare to watch them for a while.
yeah, yeah.
Like some other movies out there like that, like whatever. But obviously, we all know that that is very much based on true events and
God.
how everything happened. And it is, it's tough. It's really tough to watch some scenes and how people were treated,
It's
and all
the
that.
one
So
that
it's just one
sticks
of those
out.
you watch it and that's it.
The one that sticks out to me is and we
Yeah.
analyzed it in school at some point where it's this is not a Schindler's List podcast, but whatever. But it is the scene where it's all in black and white and there's the little girl who's in the red coat or whatever, and then you see that it's like the only color in it or whatever, and then there's that, and then you also realize that while they're walking through the streets or whatever the hell, you see that it is snowing, like as part of it. But then you realize that that snow is not actually snow, but it is ash from the people who are being burned up because they're dead. They're being
Yep.
burned. So it's like, it's a fucking depressing movie, but it's a very important movie. But it is one of
And
those things where you're like, I'm good. Maybe I don't need to
yeah,
watch that again.
that's what I'm saying. I think I
I'm
watched it.
fine.
I think I watched it in 10th grade, and I know the red
And it
part
can
of
make
the
you cry.
movie is very
Yes.
significant. You see her, and then I do think there's a part where you see her, and it's like piles of bodies, and she's one of them, and it's everything's
Yeah.
black and white, and you see that red, and
Mhm.
it's very gut wrenching to watch. And
Yeah.
I won't really go too much more into it, but yeah, again, it's very
Yeah.
anything like that is very hard. The boy in the striped pajamas, the Anne Frank, anything that has to
Any
do
of
with that
that.
that time, you will bawl your eyes out. You will. It's just not. It's not a. It's not. I mean, I think it's important to watch those type of things,
Sure.
but I just don't want to cry all the time. And
Exactly, me either.
those things hit a little too close to home for me, um,
It's yeah.
because of my husband and his family. They are Jewish, and
They're Jewish, yeah.
I don't want to say that they are, but they are. But
They half
Mark's not like a
Jewish.
yeah, Mark's like not a practicing, but his
Yeah.
family is, and I'm sure maybe in some way, shape, or form, part of
Mm-hmm.
that family may have been affected, and because
Yeah.
I love him and because I love his family,
Yeah.
that it makes my heart hurt that people they could have very just well been us. Like, it would have been all people
Yeah.
that were us in our
Well,
culture
even
or
even
this, that,
that,
and the other.
like
It's just horrible.
even that,
And
like, I mean, me, I still have the last name, but you took your husband's last name. But like, we are very much German lineage. And so it's kind of like, I wonder what our ancestors were doing during that time. I don't fucking know. But like, I wonder what that was going on with that. But
I know
it's just
it's
one of those things where
crazy.
you're like, huh. Anyway, but you know what movie? This movie did not make me cry, but it almost did. I will say, you know what scene did kind of get me a little bit? It's when they're walking back to Miss Honey's house, because I'm just like, oh, this is so
Yeah,
good. But
I
you know
don't.
what other movie? Sorry, go
I don't
ahead.
think Matilda's ever made me cry.
No, it just was like very nice. But you know what other movie? I don't know who they think they are, but trying to make me cry. Freaky Friday. Yeah, we're bringing it back to Freaky Friday because that the end scene of that where they're at the rehearsal dinner and then Jamie Lee Curtis has that speech as and girl, that made me almost cry. Beach. I was like, oh, this is so good. But anyway, so yeah, again on Freaky Friday. Who knows?
You're
Maybe
like,
we'll do an
bitch.
episode on that. Anyway. But yeah, so no, I love Miss Honey. She's very much somebody who I think of her in a weird way. I think of her as kind of like the Mr. Feeney for some people. Of like, some people are like, I watched Boy Meets World and I wanted to be like a Mr. Feeney for people, and I wanted to be a teacher. I feel like definitely there's people who are like, I wanted to be a teacher because I watched Matilda. I saw how wonderful Miss Honey was, and I wanted to be that for people, which is so cool. I didn't realize until watching it today, but it really is that these two characters, this duo, as you said, it is very much this mirror image of like, this is what you could be when you're older. And it's just so interesting to me that there is that kind of mirror image of like, this is Matilda and this is Miss Honey, and their stories are so similar. And I just think that's like really fun, and like, it's a smart way of doing it, of just like, these people are not that much different than each other. And it just then goes to show like, you can go through tragedy. Like I said, the death was mysterious in the book, but literally in the movie they say it was ruled a suicide. But even Miss Honey's like, I know my dad didn't kill himself. That's what they say. And then you find that it's implied pretty much that Agatha Trunchbull had something to do with his death, probably. So it's always kind of been implied with that. Also, a fun little thing with Trunchbull is that sometimes on Broadway, when they did the musical, she'd be played by a man, which kind of makes sense because she is very masculine. Nothing wrong with masculine women or anything, but like, I'm just saying, like, it makes a little bit of sense that they would do that because it is this kind of over the top performance that kind of makes sense. You'd have somebody, who's a man play this, like, really. I was looking on Letterboxd today, and Matilda was under a list of like where the lesbian is the villain. I was like, okay, you all gotta do Miss Trunchbull like that. I don't know if she's a lesbian, but like, whatever. I see the vision though. I get it. I see what you're saying, but come on now. We don't actually know that, but whatever. And also, I mean, I guess just to kind of, because we already kind of talked about the Wormwoods, they're all kind of horrible. I just kind of wonder, like, I would assume that with the Wormwoods, at least with Harry Wormwood, because Zinnia Wormwood, the mom, she's just some lady who like got with this guy, I guess, right? Like, but I kind of wonder with Mr. Wormwood, like, what did he go through? You know what I mean? Why is he the way he is? Like, I kind of wonder that a little bit.
I wanted to say that, because we're not really going into the plot summary of the movie, I do want to say that some part, I guess, kind of more near the beginning of the movie.
Well, we could talk about like scenes and stuff too. I'm not worried about that. Yeah, you can talk about like scenes that stood out to you too.
But when they, I think this is when they were talking about school or something like that. When he goes, I'm big, you're small, I'm smart, you're dumb, whatever. He's at that whole spiel. I'm right, you're wrong, and he says a person, like he doesn't say when a child is bad, he says when a person is bad.
Yes,
so she's like, okay, you guys know the definition of bad. So so when she when she goes in and does the peroxide on her dad's hair, like, when she switches the stuff over, and plays that prank on them essentially, and then does the hat thing later on in the scene, or later on in the movie, like 15 minutes later after the movie when they go to work. But anyway, when she does the peroxide and all that, genius, by the way, genius. Like,
it's very good.
So when she's like sitting there like, oh, let me eat my Eggos, and she's sitting there and she's like waiting because she knows they're gonna come out and it's gonna be crazy and funny. So then he comes out and then she was like, hey, Zinnia is talking to him, and she's wearing this her like nightie, like her nightie, like blue and green, which I thought was funny because she's wearing that, but she's also wearing that when like they're in the room and she's like trying to get out, and she has like I like to call her frog eye mask.
Yeah, it's so good. And
I loved I just because this could be a weird trait of me, but I like things like that, so I like that like her mask and her nightie matched.
It's funny,
green. Because she was very, in a way, supposed to be stylish in the movie. Even though it's a little bit quirky.
It's tacky, quirky, kind of,
But I always liked her eye mask and her, because then you can see the whole nighty thing in when she's at breakfast and all that.
Yeah.
And then she drops the cereal because she's like, ah.
I must say, Zinnia Wormwood is a drag like queen. Honestly, right. I love her outfits in this, and I mean, I'm sure there have been like people who have done Mrs. Wormwood from Matilda or whatever, because it's right for it. Because
get, like the wig, like a yellow.
Oh, it's so good. Like, yes. Wig. This movie also, in a weird way, I mean, like it has this camp to it that's so interesting to me because of things like Miss Trunchbull, this kind of person, because of Mrs. Wormwood, and also just like how bombastic and kind of over the top Mr. Wormwood is, the whole family is, even though Matilda and Miss Honey I think are very grounded characters, it's kind of this weird, just like, it's just the world that Danny Devito makes.
Characters who are the dad, the mom, the brother, Trunchbull,
who are like cartoonishly mean, but like also it's like I just think that's really interesting. But I
always kind of like that, like even when I was younger I always kind of like the matching of that, and I just, not that I would wear it, but I just appreciated the the matching of it, and I guess that's just the way they had her in the movie, how they had her, and also when they're doing the TV, and he's like, watch the TV, and she's like, I'm gonna break the TV. I always thought it was so funny when she starts screaming, like when it breaks, and like when she like makes that yelling, it's just funny, like the yelling she does afterwards.
Well, to kind of go into, so we talked about some of the characters and all. I think with Trunchbull, like she's just somebody who, to me at least, like has just always kind of been a bully, and she just has been able to she was able to turn that into something until, it was, until she like kind of got her comeuppance or whatever.
Miss Honey was actually her step niece, so her stepsister was. So in all actuality, Miss Trunchbull was never really truly related to Miss Honey in a way.
Okay.
She said when they had the little spiel, when she came into her life, who she, who the Trunchbull is, she's the stepsister of Miss Honey's mom. So Miss Honey and Magnus, or whatever, Miss Honey, her mom and dad had her, and then that was that. So her stepsister was the Trunchbull. So that means that how do we know? I don't know how we know the lineage. but they were stepsisters. So that means they don't have any. They're only related by marriage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So her she was never truly blood related to Magnus or Miss Honey's mom that had passed away. She was her stepsister.
Got it. Okay. That's fair.
But because she was in the family, because she was a stepsister, she was family. That's what it was. But there wasn't actually, it wasn't like it was Magnus's like sister or something.
Okay. But yeah, I guess if anything, yeah, I mean, like, so yeah, that actually does make it a little more fucked up. So because like, if anything, she's just kind of part of the family in a way. She was already probably like a bully anyway, and so it just so happened that like she was able to kind of get her claws or whatever into, you know, something like this. So I don't know how much of a character is there in terms of that, except her just being cartoonishly evil, you know? So that's what it kind of is for me, if anything. But yeah, I do want to try and get on some sort of track. So I think talking about the characters is good. That's fine. Were there any particular scenes that like kind of stood out to you or anything like that? Again, not going through a whole plot summary or anything, but are there any particular scenes that just like stand out to you or that kind of your favorite or like anything like that?
So anyway, yeah, as far as scenes go, obviously the chocolate cake scene.
It's so good. And
Iconic.
Here's the thing. Yes. And here's the thing with that is that they make that chocolate cake look, because chocolate cake in itself is perfectly good, but like they make it look disgusting though. Like really, they make it look like, oh dear God, like I don't think I would ever want to eat that fucking cake. Like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? And that's the really cool part about it is like they're able to turn something that generally is a sweet and is good, but is literally like, oh God, they make it look horrible. Yeah. Because that's the point that they're supposed
That is an iconic scene, obviously. Like
it's so good.
The fucking cake scene, like chocolate cake scene.
Oh my God, yes.
Iconic. Another part I like is when another part I like is when I'm so fat. I love food. So the chocolate cake scene, and because these all kind of have to do with food, so I'm like, I'm a fan.
It's fine.
So obviously the chocolate cake scene is very high up there. The other scene I like, which I think is a little bit before this, is is when they go to Cafe Loritz.
Oh yes.
And yeah, it is because they go to the car thing, and he's we all know he's a crook, and he's putting the stuff on there, and then he goes, she goes, I'm gonna super glue his hat to his head. Mm-hmm. Smart. And, well, obviously, like he doesn't realize it is, and then so she's like, oh, I won the double bingo, and I was like, first off, how much did you win on that double bingo? They never said that.
Sarah is a bingo connoisseur with our mother as well. They go to bingos every so often.
Well, I don't win very much, but it's fun. Anyway, but she's like, I want it. And I'm like, okay. So she's like, I want to go there. So they're like, fine. So they're going to this place, and they go in, and she's like, you gotta take your hat off. This is a nice place. And he's like, so of course they're being trash, and she's like trying to pull this hat off of him. I'm like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. So he's like, they're fighting back and forth, like trying to get it off. And Matilda and like her brother are just kind of like, okay. And then, but anyway, so then he's like, it won't come off. And then there's like the tray full of desserts that are there that he's on, like that they're on, and he ends up like flying into it. Everything goes everywhere. It splatters on the sun, like some type of thing. But Matilda's little, whatever it is, little dessert kind of just goes perfectly right in front of her, and then the fork goes in it, and she starts eating it. I always thought that was a cool scene.
It is a really cool scene. I like that one too.
Yeah, that's what. And another part I like, it's another favorite of mine, is I have a couple actually. But the other one I like is when they go to Trunchbull's house, and she's like, let's go in there, and then she's like, okay. She was like, we gotta be quick, whatever. And they like go for the chocolates, like the little chocolates that are in the the thing, and then they go to her room, like Miss Honey's old room and all that. So, and then when like Matilda goes back to like telekinetically get the things, when she got the little 2 chocolates, because some of the chocolates look good in there.
I know some of them do look really good.
That's why I'm like food based. I'm like, that looks good. Her dessert looked good. Chocolate cake. Okay, a chocolate cake could have been more appetizing, but chocolate cake, I'm thinking of it as chocolate cake. It's good.
Sure.
The candy, and then the newt scene's funny with the water. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's very good.
She's like, it's a steak. And then like the end of it, like when you see her and Miss Honey, like roller skate around the living room and have a picnic. That's a sweet, sweet uh, ending tie up of the
Yeah.
movie, and it's cute. So
Yeah.
those are definitely some scenes that stick out to me that I like. But I've always kind of just liked the chocolate cake scene because it's iconic, and I like the
Yeah.
little dessert dinner scene where
Yes.
everything's chaotic and then her things in front of her and all that. It's always very I always it's just to kind of enjoy those ones.
Yeah.
But those are some of mine that I liked
Yeah, no, I
a lot.
totally get that. I think for me, like I do like some of those scenes, like the chocolate cake scene is really fun. I also like when I like the chase scene through the Trunchbull's house because that was always like
Yeah,
super
that's what I was
cool to
saying. Is I like
me.
that scene. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
liked like when they went to go look for the chocolate, and she was like, he'd have one. Like she was saying how like she would like what would happen when she was
Uh-huh.
little with her dad, and all that. Like it was kind of cool, like watching that. But then I guess, and then going up to her old room and stuff like that. And then
Yeah,
when
yeah, yeah.
Matilda goes back later to go get the things from the tree. But when they're actually in the house and like they're basically running away from me in Trunchbull
Yes.
and
So
like
good.
taking the like that ball or whatever the heck it is and basically causing a
Hmm.
ruckus in the house, making
Yeah,
Trunchbull go crazy. I
right.
always, that's kind of like, oh, okay, that's a cool scene too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I really like that one personally. That's really good for me. Um, yeah, because it's just like so like it has that bit of like, there's some tension there, which I kind of liked. There was that. I also like some of these scenes are just so like because Roald Dahl as a author is just kind of like a little odd and weird and whatever the hell. And some of the
Okay,
movies that were made. Go ahead.
again, I'm so fat. I just thought of another food one, food based. I just thought about it because as you were saying, the quirky, her little dance scene's cute when
Uh-huh.
she's like doing everything, and she kind of has her powers down. But this one ties more into more in the beginning of the movie when she's younger, and she did that pancake flip. Those pancakes are good.
They did look really good. I
And
love
she
them.
did that, and she was like, because she's like, seeps on the stove, and she's like, I don't want this shit. And she throws it away. I'm like, that's right,
Just throws
Matilda.
it away.
And she makes the pancakes up, and then and does that. I'm like, those pancakes look fire. So
Yeah,
again, that's always like another little favorite of mine, just because it's just like a cool little cute scene, the
it's cute.
music
Yeah.
playing and all that,
Yeah.
and all that. But again, apparently I like all these food ones because that's what I like.
Yeah, no, I like that one. There's like some tension there. I like the one near the end. I like the one scene in the end where Trunchbull is run out of the school, but it starts with like Matilda using her powers to like conjure the spirit or to see me like that. And it's
Yeah,
just
that
like
was always a
the
cool scene.
it's always really cool because you have like the shutters that are going back and forth, and then the kids are
And then
all
they're all
like
throwing shoe food at her.
they're throwing food at her. They are all
And then
reading what's
Bruce
on
gets
the
the chocolate cake in her
chalkboard.
face, and I'm like, that's right.
It's good. It's good. There's that, and then like, but I like that scene. There's like some horror in here a little bit too, because like even the way they do the $1,000,000 sticky, where they have her watching the TV and then explodes or whatever. You're just like, oh my god, this is like horrifying. Like it's like Requiem for a Dream or some shit. Like because they are just
No,
showing.
that's like some Carrie shit.
No, it really is. Like, no, it's like that, or like they're just showing like these three people just like laughing crazily. And then, it's like, it's weird. Like, it doesn't surprise me that some people could be a little afraid of this as a kid, of just like, what the hell is that scene? Like, what is this? But yeah, I thought that was really good. Yeah, no, I like those ones. One that I thought that was interesting was just the fact of like, why, like, for whatever reason, like, Matilda like taking the tape from the FBI agents where she makes the car like it makes it move and whatever, and they're like going through the garage or whatever, and she's like, I hope you have a search warrant because I read a book on constitutional law, blah blah blah, blah, and you can lose your jobs and go to federal prison. And they're like, your dad's gonna go to federal prison. Also love that Pee Wee Herman's one of them. Like, I love that. But anyway, it's just like, I just think it's interesting because it shows that like even though Matilda is not really into her family and they don't fuck with her either, but like she's still trying to like help them by like not sending them to jail. You know what I mean? So I just thought that was kind of fun, and it just shows a different little layer of Matilda of like, oh, she at least wants to help her family out by not having her dad just immediately go to jail. So I just thought that was kind of funny, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. But yeah, no, those were I think those were like big scenes. Like, yeah, the chocolate cake one. I think it's just chase scene in general through the house. And then I think the ending for me, and then the ending is just so freaking good. Like I was literally saying this a couple days ago where I was like, because our mom was like, we saw Harriet the Spy at that theater, right? And I was like, yes, we did, but we also saw Matilda there because I remember the literal end of the movie is where she brings Moby Dick over to when they're doing the bedtime story or whatever, which also Moby Dick is a bedtime story. Like, what the hell? Okay. But it's like it's that, but like it is, I remember specifically that scene watching it on like the big screen, and I was like, that's why I remember I saw this in the theater, because I would have had to have if I had that memory as like a kid or whatever. So, but I don't know. I just think this movie is so good and wonderful, and it's just like I think if anything, like it's just a movie that I'm so happy exists. And I think it honestly, have you seen The Witches before?
Yes. It's been a long time, but I've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't.
Doesn't it have Angelica Houston in it?
It does. She plays the main witch, I believe.
Yes. I want to say I watched it in middle school, but I could be wrong. But I want to say I did. I think they put it like on TV for us one day. But I also think that there was a remake in the last couple of years of like Anne Hathaway.
Yes, there was.
Didn't watch that one, but I watched the original one, like the 90s one.
Yeah. Like, I can't say that I watched The Witches, and I haven't even seen James the Giant Peach. I think this is the only Roald Dahl thing I've watched except for Willy Wonka and like really Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Although I've only seen Willy Wonka, I haven't seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the newer one. But same. I mean, personally, I think like this is like, I don't know, it's like his best adaptation. Like, a lot of them are really good. Like, I don't know about the movie musical, but I know that the musical itself and this movie is just really good. And I don't know, it's a movie that I just am so here for.
I can say The Witches, the one back from the 90s, I can say that it is a little creepier, because I do remember there is a part of the movie that, so Angelica Houston is a witch, and again, I don't even remember how the plot goes, to be honest with you. But she's a witch, and then there's a part in the movie where it's her and maybe other people that are witches like undo themselves, if that makes sense. And like she's got like a pointed nose, kind of like a nose like Wizard of Oz witch from Wicked Witch of the West, and it's scary because
it is scary.
If you've ever. This is just me being a millennial, but there's like the BuzzFeed articles that are like 20 childhood movies scenes that are terrifying, and it's like, and that's one of them. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
exactly,
that makes sense. Yeah, but it's been so long. But I something tells me I feel like I watched it in 6th grade. I don't know why that's sticking with me, but I feel like we watched it in 6th grade.
You probably
could be wrong, but I think I did. Yeah,
probably.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, so I think like
that's my remembrance of it.
Yeah, your memory of that and everything. Yeah, no, I just think like, I feel like this movie, I guess we'll start to wrap it up a little bit, because we can only go on so much about this movie as a whole, although we could go forever about it, honestly. I'm so here for it. But I do think that overall, though, I think this movie is something where I'm very happy that it does exist. I'm very happy that like Mara Wilson grew up to be a perfectly well-adjusted young lady, and she's doing perfectly well for herself. And I just like how, now that I've watched this as an adult, I like that there is something deeper to this movie than what I remember as a kid. I think it is a mature movie that is not talking down to children. I think it sees it right where they're at, and also it just has a deeper message. And I guess I'd have to give that credit to maybe the writers of this, but also Danny DeVito for being able to direct this movie and have that help bring that vision to life, if anything. So I'm just so happy. Like, I would absolutely like, this is something you can show children, and it's not going to scar them, and it's not going to like scare them too bad. You know what I mean? And it's like, I always think of these kinds of movies that are targeted to kids or like have a message to it. Like, but yeah, I think I like this a little more than Harriet the Spy. I'm going to say, I was just thinking of that today. I was like,
I think so too. I'd have to say the same thing. But like I said, as we stated earlier at the beginning of the episode, watching it when you're 5, 6, 7, 8,
Exactly.
you watch it as, oh wow, this girl's got powers. She's, not treated so great by her family. You kind of get that just, I feel like you might get that when you're of that age. You might kind of realize, oh, she's not getting treated so well. But, it's a fun movie to watch. Like the parts of it that make it funny, like the cake scene and her dancing around with her powers and getting all the cards and things and having everything move and all that and funny things like that. But that's fun. But again, like I said earlier, when you're watching it when you're older, as an adult through adult eyes, like I said, you do kind of see like even though it's underlying, I think it's a more tragic part of the story too. That
you do, yeah.
Maybe some of his kind of think about Willy Wonka, like also very tragic. Like
Roald Dahl, I think, if anything, he had a penchant.
Like you see like okay, because he's like fucking killing kids like every scene.
He has a penchant. He has a penchant for the weird and macabre a little bit. So it's interesting that
but they're dying off.
They're dying. They're like dying off in his factory,
or they're going somewhere in their factory. But
right,
it does have it does have a James the Giant Peach. I'm really not sure what that's about, so I can't say that.
Yeah.
But I think they probably all have underlying tragedies underneath them. And Matilda, like I said, watching it yesterday and watching it. I mean, I've watched it probably a few times in the past few years as being an adult, and I do see it's horrible. Like when you really look at it, it's horrible how she's treated by her parents.
Yeah,
obviously it could be worse. Like there's always worse out there, unfortunately, which is sad to say. But
that's not this movie, but yeah.
But it's like, obviously she could be in a more loving home but anyway, watching it through that, but just think about if she would have had Miss Honey home growing up, because they were saying that, I was reading something yesterday that was like, that like when she got older, she didn't like need her powers or use them, or she didn't really have the capability of them.
That was the book. So the book is that the telekinesis kind of dissipated because she wasn't in that environment she was in exactly
when her parents basically said. And also another thing I thought was funny, interesting, when I was back in the day, like kind of when I was younger, when she was like, I have the adoption papers. I'm like, what?
I know, like how does that even work? Like what?
The parents were like, huh? And Miss Honey's like, okay, and she's like,
all right, I guess.
I'm like, sure.
Right. No, it's so
I'm like,
true.
she's anything and she's determined. If nothing else, she's determined.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's definitely watching it as it's kind of interesting watching these type of movies.
It is.
When you're younger, you don't really understand it. You just kind of see it as whatever, it's something you may have read the book back in the day. And then this is the movie part of it.
But I also think
for the musical how it goes. I don't know how the musical, if it stacks up the same or if it's very similar
good.
To
I like the musical personally, but yeah, totally.
But then watching it as an adult, you kind of see underlying things that it wouldn't have went over your head when you're younger. But
totally.
I don't know. It's a good watch. I can definitely watch it again and again. Some people have that mindset where they watch a movie and they're like, okay. And sometimes I'm like that with certain movies. Like I'm like, I don't need to watch it again. I'll watch it once. But there's definitely some comfort movies, and I would say probably somewhere on here, this is kind of a comfort movie that I can definitely sit down and watch it again and again.
I agree.
Even though I know what's going to happen, I know what scene's coming up, I know what's going to happen, I know what they're going to say, blah blah blah. Also, can we talk about the Chokey
and how like horrible it is, and like. But the thing is, I know. But like, also the thing is that the joke of it is that these punishments are so horrible that the parents don't believe the children. So it's like when you explain what the Chokey is, and a kid's mom or dad are going to be like, "Wait, what? Like, that doesn't make sense." But it's actually reality.
I thought that was funny when they were like hiding, and she's like, "You better skedaddle," and then she was like. Would your parents believe? And she was like, and so I was like, no, they wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't. Right. You're right. Like, never mind. Yeah. But yeah, this movie,
like, the way my parents are, no, they would not.
No, they wouldn't. And that's the whole kind of point of it. But yeah, but this movie definitely, I mean, I just love it. It's timeless, to use that term. I mean, it's just something where it will always be. And I appreciate that. You can, so by the time you're hearing it now, it'll be off Netflix, but it does make the rounds on Prime and like some of the other subscription services, so you can find it. I would rent this bitch for sure. Like, throw it some dollars. Like, if you don't already have it, please do so. Like, it's good. Like,
I had this one. Shocking.
Shocking, right. But and then also maybe get the Blu-ray of it. Like, again, if you want to have those little, go look up the little reunion online. It's really cute. And all that. But yeah, I'm glad to have covered this because it is like the anniversary of it technically on this episode. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just a movie that is seminal to my childhood because I watched it definitely. And if anything, I'm glad to have been covering it. But yes. But Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show today. I think we are at a record of this is our shortest episode you and me have done. Because again, I'm trying to make it so that, we're not just talking about the fucking plot all the time, but like we're able to talk about like, oh, what did we think about this character? What did we think about this scene? What were some things that stood out to us? Because I think that's more interesting, if anything. But anyway, but yeah, I think that brings us to a wrap, if anything. But do you have any parting words before we start to head off or anything?
No.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. As always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so at cultcinemacircle@gmail.com. If you'd like to give any movie recommendations, give feedback on the show, or if you'd just like to say, hey, I'm open to all of it. You can also follow the show on Instagram at cultcinemacircle and on Twitter at cultcinecircle. I tend to announce the movies that I'm going to be covering and just interact with people on there if they want. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at Jesse, Jesse, Kremp, Kremp, all one word. On that platform, I tend to log the movies that I watch. I write little stupid reviews about them and just general foolishness over there. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast on your podcatcher of choice, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm pretty much on all of them. Be sure to leave 5 stars and a 1 to 2 sentence review about the show so we can grow the audience and then just spread the love all around. Be sure to tune in next week to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, where I'll be covering 1972's Pink Flamingos. Notorious Baltimore criminal and underground figure Divine goes against Connie and Raymond Marble, a sleazy married couple who makes a passionate attempt to humiliate her and sees her tabloid-given title as the filthiest person alive. As always, thank you for taking the time to listen to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, and remember, whoever painted the Trunchbull must have had a strong stomach. A really strong stomach. Take care. Bye.